due to where they are currently on the salary schedule. And then enrollment patterns for us have been really solid. We've had not only stable enrollment, but also growth. And given our current situation, that may continue to hold true, but it's just less certain than it has been in the past. On the flip side, there is some mitigation to the structural deficit. One is in the Federal CARES Act, where we received some one-time dollars. Of course, we would like to get more in that category, but we did receive some one-time dollars through the CARES Act. The governor has committed to the next 2 years to give us some relief in the increases that we are required to contribute for STRS and PERS obligations. We know that because we have been funded below the special education base rate, that we will see some level of a bump up in special education funding. And again, we hold it out for the possibility of additional federal, yet to be passed federal help. I put an asterisk at the bottom of this slide noting that, all school districts must budget based on May revise, even though we know, not we guess, we know that the final state budget will be different. So everything we're doing is based on what we know today. I'm a visual learner myself, so I enjoy looking at graphs and charts because they really help to paint a picture. And so you can see that on the far right, you can see in this model an explanation of the governor continuing to have us acknowledge on the books that we are receiving a cost of living increase, but the red is the reduction. So with a net effect of having a negative 7.92 reality. So I think this is a helpful picture to show. Under LCFF, we have never operated. This is new. Under LCFF, we've never had a year with a negative. This slide is intended to provide you, to take you from the larger state funding issue and bring it down to RBUSD. The average funding that we get for our base LCFF in this current school year is $9,100 per student. The projection is for it to be reduced, leaving us with an approximation of $8,372 per student. So that's a reduction per student by $739, which equated out to the total reduces our base LCFF for next school year at $7,172,519. So when the board approves a budget, they don't get to approve 1 year at a time, but they have to approve the upcoming year and then the next. So really they have to approve a budget for the next 3 years, which is why you have the chart in front of you. This chart is, again, I titled it a snapshot in time because it's true today. Next week, that snapshot will likely look different, as it will 3 weeks from now or a month from now. So this is what we know as of today. It assumes that, again, in these charts, you have to make numbers of assumptions. So we assumed a flat enrollment. We assumed that we would not receive a COLA for the following 2 years. Those are LACO's recommendations, that we assume a flat COLA. We also assume in this that we take no cuts, right? That there are no reductions in expenditures. And it does assume that for the 2021 and the 21-22 school year, that we have the reductions in STRS and PERS. That's why you see on the third year out such a huge drop off, because that assumes that we will be back to paying what we're expected to pay for STRS and PERS obligations. So this is just a painted picture for the day or today.
Annette, I have a question. I don't like this picture.
Annette, can you hear me?
Well, not my
I know.
not my favorite either.
Yeah.
So that facing the brutal facts.
Yeah.
Right?
Annette, can you hear
But
me?
before ending, I didn't want to end on that painted picture. I did want to provide you with, in terms of some takeaways, just realizing some of the savings and the work that we're doing this spring to get at as many savings as we possibly can, although acknowledging that we do have additional costs given our circumstances. So in terms of savings, we are saving because we're not spending the money on substitutes, certificated and classified staff. We're paying a lot less in utility costs. A number of contractors that we've had that are not able to provide services. I gave an example of a professional development contract we had, that he won't be providing the services and we won't be paying for that contract. No transportation fees, no travel and conference in the spring. Schools are minimally purchasing potential like supplies, but generally speaking, there have been little to no approval of school and office supplies from March through the end of the year. And then also we're working very closely with some of our long-term leaseholders to see if we can achieve some upfront help us with our cash flow pieces. On the cost side, we do have additional costs for the CDC personnel, given that it's a independent program. So we have paid some monies out of our general fund to offset that. We will end the year at a loss for our child nutrition program. We have purchased some facial masks. We have purchased definitely additional and new sanitizing products. We have purchased some additional student technology, Chromebook chargers, and some Wi-Fi hotspots. And we have definitely incurred some loss of income due to the shutdown of facilities and the ability for people to rent our facilities. We look forward to a day in the not too distant future where we'll be able to get that back. At this point, I am ready, willing, and able to answer our questions.
David had one. I don't know if you heard him.
Yeah, just what does it mean in real world terms to have the reserve go negative?
Well, the statutory requirement is 3%. So we need to have 3% if we want the county to accept our budget as positive.
Okay, so basically we can't let the reserve go negative. We'll have to make adjustments on the expenses.
Right. Otherwise we send it to the county and they either they can. There's a few options for the county, but basically you need to be presenting a budget that has a 3% reserve or higher.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just presented as it is before we do anything.
Right. Absolutely. Thank you.
So I have a question. Based on the talk that they had, they mentioned that there's some relief measures. Are any of those relief measures related to changing the reserve minimum or allowing alternate forms of borrowing or anything else like that that would make any difference to this?
So based on the people and the organizations that I talk to and listen to and read about and trust, there has not been a discussion about a less than 3%. I'm not aware of any. Dr. Keller may have. And we will absolutely in June be bringing some requests for approval for the board to participate in a trans, which we've done before to help us with our cash flow. But that is the only discussion around those topics that I'm aware of.
But the TRAN only allows us within a fiscal year borrowing, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, the trend is really just enough to make sure we have enough cash flow for our budget, but the reality is we still have to have the revenue to offset the trends. So yeah, we can't borrow.
And it's especially important that we have that ability when the state is using deferrals.
And that was going to be my question, was the deferrals. If we're getting all the paper IOUs like we got last time, then the only thing we have to fill that gap are the trans, correct?
Yes.
Are those available? Are we going to run into any problems getting those? And one of the reasons I ask is just got off a call at work this morning, and the customary letters of credit, and David probably has a better view on this than I do, but the customary letters of credit that are out there in the both in the governmental and the private sector world are extraordinarily hard to come by. So I just wanted to hope that the trans aren't going to be somehow bottled up.
Well, our fiscal services director and I have been, actually over the weekend, we've been emailing with the group that does our trans, and we've been working with them, and she does not see any problem with our timeline that we've given to them and our projected amount. So we're not anticipating a problem.
Good. Well, please keep your eye open.
We'll do.
Yeah, just expect it to probably be a little more expensive tomorrow than normal. So, any other questions?
I have a question, Brad.
Sure.
What are our next steps? This is just a snapshot in time. What is the next step from this? Because obviously we're not presenting this to the state.
Dr. Keller, you want to take that?
I can barely hear you.
Okay, I'll cover some of this during my report.
Okay.
Right. We have a June 30th timeline that the board needs to adopt the budget, and that's a non-negotiable timeline. So June 30th is our timeline.
I'll answer a question. Okay. Any other questions so far? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Alpern.
Thank you.
Next up, CDC presentation. Teresa Van Duzen. Just a reminder to the board that I'm muting when you guys
So don't watch up there.
The presenters are talking. So if you need something, just kind of wave your hand, and that way I know to unmute you.
It's way better.
Awesome. Okay, so first I just wanted to say thank you to the board, Dr. Keller, and the cabinet for allowing me to come and share our plan for reopening our child development program on June 11th. I also wanted to say thank you to all of you for your tremendous support of our program and staff over the last couple months. It's truly meant a lot. So, is it delayed?
It's slightly delayed, so.
It's not working. Okay, so since our actual shutdown, our teachers and staff have been engaging and learning with students via WebEx, pre-recorded videos, email. They actually make the phone calls to students. They're wanting to keep them engaged, whether it's through regular sending them cards and letters through the mail as well. So we've actually been active this whole time. We've been off campuses as well. Which button am I supposed to? Awesome. So since we closed, we've always been planning on how to come back as soon as it's safe and feasible to do so through 3 steps. And that's to communicate with all stakeholders, including our C19 group, my site supervisors, and actual parents in our program, so that we can plan in order to get our students back. So our first step was to send a survey to our families. So we sent a survey to 750 families that are currently enrolled in our year-round program that are in TK through 5th grade. We did not include preschool in this. And of those 750, 470 families replied, representing 633 students, and 85% said they are ready to come back, even with a modified program. And of those 633, there's 255 that have said they would enroll even if there was a price increase when we come back. So based on that, we've been planning. So with the guidelines from LA County changing almost daily, we finally know that we're in phase 2. Once we found out we were in phase 2, we knew what we could do in a classroom. So we decided, yes, we're going to plan to open. So by the end of this week, by May 29th, all of the families that we initially contacted, we will send our reopening guidelines, a contract, so they can actually sign up and enroll in our summer program. By June 5th, all of our sites will be ready with the materials necessary, being thermometers, masks, and classroom supplies, and they're all sanitized. I know that Laura with M&O has already done that. June 8th, our teachers will be back on campuses to prep their classrooms, as well as to be trained on the new sanitizing measures that we need to participate in, and to teach, learn new practices on teaching the students how to wash their hands and how many times a day. And then on June 11th, we plan on being back on campuses, all 8 campuses in some capacity. And what's that going to look like? So according to the current guidelines, we're in phase 2, which means we can have 10 students per classroom. But it has to be a static group. So it has to be the same 10 students in the same space with the same teacher on a daily basis. And that means that siblings have to be in the same room. So we'll have a wide age range in a classroom, but we know that we can do this. We'll have a valet drop-off for the families. So no parents on campus. When they come to drop off, parents and students will be wearing masks in the car. They'll be greeted at the car. And then, next slide, they'll do the health check at the car. So we'll have designated staff that does that, take the temperature of each student. If it's above 100.5, they will not be allowed to attend. And we will also go through the safety questions with them, where parents can disclose any symptoms their students may have had, or if they've been in contact with anybody that may have been exposed to COVID. Classroom preparation. So the first 3 days that our teachers are back on campus without students, in addition to training, they're going to be setting up individual bags for each student that include manipulatives for play, art supplies, so that there's no sharing of materials in the classroom. They'll also set up the classrooms so that we have the social distancing. Saddest part of this thing is to try and keep kids separate, but at least they'll be in the room together, seeing faces in the same space. And we will be removing all of the soft materials like the carpets that you usually gather on, dress-up clothes, any soft materials that kids like to play with. We will also have a dirty toy bin in the classroom. So after toys are played with, they can be put in the bin to be sanitized later so that they can be brought back in. We also have this cleaning schedule that we're going to provide to all staff, including M&O staff. Laura and I worked with our plan for custodians to be there on campus for most of the day that we're there so that they're available to our staff, as well as to sanitize each classroom space we're using at the end of the evening for 2 hours so that we know that it's clean. So our teachers will be trained in all of these aspects before the kids are actually on campus, because our goal is to make sure everything is safe for a great return. And with that, with the support of this board and our staff and our community of families, we were strong before this happened. We were a great program, and we plan on coming back stronger. So we hope we're going to be back on the 11th.
So I have a question. What does phase 3 look like? And I only ask that because the governor today has already done stage 3 in concept for like barbershops and things. Now, LA County hasn't approved it yet, but if we move to that in 2 weeks,
I would love that. That's my goal. Phase 2 is 10 kids per classroom. Phase 3 is 15 per classroom. So that would make it us able to actually lower the cost. And I know that we'd get a lot more families that would come back with 15 to classroom. And then phase 4 is 20 per classroom. So if we could get to that phase 3, we're ready to roll that out as soon as it happens.
Yeah. And I'm naive in asking, but what was our head count before all this started per classroom?
33.
Okay. Okay, any questions from the board?
Teresa did a good job, and she actually answered my one question, which was, are you going to keep siblings together? So.
Yep. Awesome.
I have a question. Did we have to submit any of these plans to the LA County Department of Health?
No, they're not requiring us to.
Okay.
And Teresa, just one observation. I noticed we've got 100.5 as a cutoff. CDC is using 100.3, and LA County Department of Public Health is using 100.4. So
That was actually, we got that from the CDC. So they may have changed it. I'll check.
yeah, double check. They might have changed it on my end too.
Well, thank you guys for all that hard work. It's just been a very interesting time. So thank you guys. So. All right, student board member Sergio.
Yes, I'll keep it very quick. So ASB is working diligently with administration to provide the best virtual ceremony we can for our 2020 graduates. So far, it's looking really well with seniors submitting information regarding like any memories they have from the past 4 years, just to be included into the graduation ceremony, as well as we're planning a virtual senior time capsule that will be sent to all seniors, just as a recollection of the last 4 years that they can carry with them. And then secondly, I would like to introduce, although we can't do it in person, I will do it virtually. The next student school board member is Charles Stearman. He's a rising sophomore. He's been in ASB this past year as a freshman. Really great kid, really great candidate. I fully supported Mrs. Mata's and Mr. Brandt's decision to select him. He's really responsible. He's grown a lot this past year, and I have full faith that he'll be able to execute the position flawlessly. If not flawlessly, he's gonna do well. I have full trust in him, especially with everything that's going on. But I feel certain I'm perfectly fine passing the torch to him. And don't worry, I'm going to train him well, just because I want to leave everything better than I found it. So he's in good hands. Don't worry about it. We're doing great in terms of training. But I am pleased to announce that he will be the next student school board member. So hopefully there'll be a way where we can introduce him in person. You guys can.
Right. Well, I'm sure you will train him well. So
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Dr. Keller.
Welcome, everybody. Nice job to our two previous presenters. I'm going to kind of jump around here a little, then I'm going to get to Raymer's question. But just want to let you know our, updating you on the reopening schools and CDC think tank. We have subgroups now that we're working with, and basically created how LACO, LA County Office of Education, has created its 5 categories. And the 5 categories are for online instruction, however we look at it next, is really the focus on how do we create options for our kids to come back to, given that we could have smaller class sizes and may have to consider some sort of rotation or modified day schedule. So that's one of the groups. Health and safety, obviously, you heard a lot about it already. Socio-emotional support systems, that's another subcommittee. Family and community engagement, and operations. And so each of those really does encompass everything that's under the umbrella of reopening. And I got to give LACO credit on this. They really did. And the committee there really did frame it very well for us. It provide us some support and as we move forward. And we have various groups of people or individuals on each of these committees. And so I think it's well represented. They will come back. The subcommittees will come back next Tuesday at our next meeting and present about a 10-minute overview of what are the pieces and elements that we need as we move forward to keep our community, our kids, our families, our staff safe. And so we'll be sharing more of that as we move down this road. I'll tell you some of Teresa just shared with you very in a comprehensive fashion. And obviously, we're looking to CDC as a process for us that we will likely engage in as we look to open our schools. So obviously, we want to replicate the great things that happen, and if we some mistakes we make, which we will, we'll modify and be ready for our eventual larger return. Just to be clear, LACO and the LA County Department of Health, the state of schools are, closed at this time. We're still in stage 2, as you heard. Stage 3 is for schools to reopen. Child care centers we see have opened around us. Several have reopened. Hence, you see the CDC's gradual reopening, which is technically, if you think about it, it's the day after school closes, June 10th, or the end of the school year, I should say. Obviously, we're hearing many things each week about potential for reopening for the 2021 school year. We hear anything from distance learning to a potential to have kids come back to school sites in a smaller classroom setting. I can tell you that our maintenance and operation team has been creating sample-like rooms based on 4 feet apart, 6 feet apart. Where do you put the 6 feet apart? Is it to the student's head, to the head? Do you do it from the table? We're looking at every angle there is, knowing that some of this is going to change. And so we want to be prepared with each option. So I want you to know that the think tank is looking at all of this. We've looked at scenarios for classrooms. Classroom structures are ready, while recognizing, not to get mired in the detail here, but the average class size in the state of California is about 960 square feet. Well, we have most of our classes at 960 square feet, but some are over 1,100 square feet, and we certainly have some that are 800 square feet. So we have to be mindful that not every classroom is the same size. So that will be something that we consider moving forward. I want to be clear. This is, if you know anything about the Redondo Beach Unified School District, the board, the staff here, everybody in this room in particular, patience is not our strong point. We like to get things done. You like to tell us to get things done, and we like to hustle and get things done. But one thing we've learned is things have gradually moved along. A random announcement could happen right as I'm speaking right now from the state. Happens unbeknownst to any of us, and we have to bob and weave, adjust, and be agile. Which is not a bad thing necessarily. It's just that what schools will look like when we reopen in 2021, no one knows for sure. But we will be ready, and we will have every option under the umbrella covered. Want to remind parents and staff that, and this will be going out after June 10th, but we will send out a parent and staff survey about options for coming back and what that looks like, given the best information we have at that moment. That survey, I would argue, has to come out right towards the end of the school year, June 10th, that week, or maybe the following week, because I think we're going to have more information. We'll be able to provide a better survey to parents, and we'll only have to survey parents and staff once, as opposed to go back again based on new information. And the parent says, well, I already answered some of these questions. Well, guess what? The goalpost has changed, and so we may have to make a modification. But I think by early June, mid-June, we'll have a good understanding of what we're looking at. And so providing a survey to parents to find out what they're hoping for in the best case scenario. Mindful that some parents may not want their children to come back if we do allow them to, if we are allowed to come back. And so really trying to cover ourselves for all scenarios moving forward. And I'll continue to bring the think tank's suggestions to this group here. And I'm just going to tell you until I'm blue in the face, patience is going to pay off. Budget. I do want to share with you, Dr. Huffman gave a good overview earlier about where we stand today. I love how she emphasized that, because every day we're learning something different. I think, some of us are a little more optimistic about what can happen next, but I will say the outcome of the initial May revise was obviously negative, but it was a little more positive than some of us anticipated. But still, under the current scenario, it's a pretty significant number for us, $7+ million. I just remind you, and I think this gets to your question, Raymer, directly, that labor relations, trust and care will guide us collectively in this process. So one of the first things I would recommend as superintendent, when we get to the point where we know that these numbers are real, is to have a conversation first with our labor friends and get in a room and essentially start a negotiation process that says, where are we at in this collectively? Certainly, boards and superintendents and committees can be formed about where to cut, how to cut. But I would argue, as your superintendent, one thing we have is a trusting, caring relationship with our labor partners, and get in a room with them first to talk about where they're at collectively as a group. This is what we did in the Great Recession. It was tough. It was hard. But we negotiated a settlement that provided scenarios for worst case, and worst case. And I think it served us well through the process. Some districts may do it differently. Great for them. I would start with a conversation with our labor leaders. Secondly, obviously what we're trying to do as we move forward now is where we have jobs, positions that are open, where we can, we don't hire behind them. We don't hire behind those positions. There are things we're doing already to start to continue to save money. The second thing is we are, as Dr. Alpern talked about, we are looking at ways to either get a prepayment or an increased payment from some of our leaseholders. We have one meeting next week that I think can be more fruitful than the others. But real dollars are real dollars. Talk is nice, but we would want to see real dollars. So those kind of address at least the ways I would recommend we start, and we are starting. And you have a few pieces before you today that recognize that we have budget cuts. We have some layoff notifications before the board today. And I think that is just an example of, unfortunately, the situation we're in and the tough decisions we have to make together. Again, what I would say as we move forward, a little bit of patience. We're hoping, some of us, we go on different calls for budget, the state budget. There's some that believe that the state will, depending on what happens with the federal government, if they provide a stimulus, the feds could help us, the state could help us, neither could help us. But there is certainly some optimism that one or the other, if not a little bit of both, could help us if in the weeks ahead. But honestly, it's a bruising educational budget that we've been faced with. But as always, together we'll get through it. And then RBUSD graduation. I just want to thank. I know Brad Waller and Raymer and some of us were out there on Saturday. We provided the kids, the graduating seniors, their caps and gowns and other items that they need for their great experience. And I got to say, it was flawless. It really was done well. I have to say, probably one of the most well-organized events I've been to in quite a while. And our parents and kids honored the incremental distribution of time. I don't think anybody jumped the gun based on what I saw. And it was just a nice, slow but steady flow of people coming in and out. And I know the high school is almost ready with its video. And I know they are talking about, what if, given the LA County Department of Health, Public Health modification, what a modified drive-through or what have you will look like. There are some that believe the drive-through scenario that's been provided by the LA County Department of Health could be modified and a little further if you wait, if you're patient a little. I just want to remind you the high school has a graduation committee of very smart, very creative people. And so they can continue to meet, and I know they were meeting today. Any questions?
Dr. Keller, I do have another follow-up question to mine. When you said the conversation will start with labor, is that starting now, since you said when we have real numbers? We have these numbers.
Yeah.
And the June 30th is a deadline, so.
Yeah, I would say have we sat down? We've sat down for summer. I mean, Dr. Wesley certainly sat down with at least a couple of our labor partners to talk about summer program. I think what we'd like to do is in the next couple weeks, get what we believe will be at least closer to firmer numbers and then start the conversation. So I would say, early June, mid-June, that would be the time, and hopefully we have great information. And if we don't have great information or better information, then what we'd have to say is, okay, it's from here to here. This would be the conversation and create scenarios under each worst case scenario, if you will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing as I hear none, we'll move on to the hearing section. I don't have any advance written requests. So we will jump to general consent. Does anyone want to pull anything from general consent?
Yes. This is Mike, and I think 10.2 might be worthy of a comment or two.
Yes.
I'd say
I agree.
10.2.
Okay, so can I get a motion to approve 10.1 and 10.3?
So moved. Brad?
Seconded, Mike.
Sergio?
Aye.
Huh?
Aye.
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Brad Waller?
Aye.
And myself is aye. That's motion carries 5-0. Can I get a motion second to item 10.2?
Moved, Mike.
Second. Brad?
David.
Thank you. Either Mike or Brad Waller, go for it.
Go ahead,
Well,
Mike.
let me start off, and then Brad, you can finish it in plain style. This, to me, is such a great example of why this community is so great. The call went out. We needed help, and as I was paging through this list of donations, I was just floored. So it obviously far too many to thank individually, but collectively, and I think as Teresa had mentioned earlier, this really shows the why this is such a wonderful community.
Yeah, what Mike was saying, I didn't do a count on how many there is, but there's 7 pages of names, donations in the range anywhere from $50 to over $1,500. Sum total almost 150,000. It's just very impressive. This is part of our record. People can go into it, read through the 6.5 pages of names if they want to, from everything from the zone to all of our elementary schools.
Totally agree. Sergio?
Aye.
Kramer?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
And Brad Waller?
Aye.
And that's aye for myself, so motion carries 5-0. Moving on to action items. Can I get a motion and a second for 12.1 to adopt resolution authorizing participation in assignment of delinquent tax revenues?
So moved, David.
Second, Brad.
And Dr. Alpern.
Yes, thank you. This resolution is necessary to continue for us to participate in this program for the next 3 years. What happens is delinquent tax collections are remitted to a JPA, and then they're distributed to each participating school district. So for 2019, we received $29,762. And so we'd like to continue to be receiving delinquent taxes. And this resolution would authorize us to do that for the next 3 years.
Sorry, I have to make 2 clicks in order for you guys to keep clicking. So, any comments or questions? Hearing none. Sergio. Here, Sergio.
Aye.
Okay, David.
Aye.
Kramer.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
Brad Waller.
Aye.
And I myself, motion carries 5-0. On to 12.2, approval participation, CMAS contract for purchase of roofing materials.
So moved, David.
Second, Brad.
Okay. At the last board meeting, you approved the contract for the work to be done for Washington Roof. And this is the second half, which is the materials to complete the project.
Any questions? Sergio.
Aye.
Kramer.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Brad Waller.
Aye.
Aye. Myself, motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 12.3, approval of the 3-year contract with Christie White Associates to conduct a 2021 through 23 district audits.
So moved, David.
Second, Raymer.
This item and actually the next two items, one refers to the district, our general district audit, and the next one refers to our Measure Q audits. And we get a better rate if we approve a 3-year contract. And so the presentation and request is for you to approve a 3-year contract with Christy White Associates to conduct our audits over the next 3 years. In particular, for Measure Q, if we don't have dollars for them to audit, we obviously won't be paying for their services, but the contract is for 3 years. We've been very satisfied with their work.
Yeah, I agree that they've been good. I like them, but I think we've also been using them pretty much my entire tenure here. How often do we look for bids or at least interview other auditors?
Great question. I asked the same thing. So there is no legal requirement to go out for an RFQ. And however, I think you all were on the board 2 years ago when you requested this of my predecessor. And so we did go out for an RFQ in 2018, and Christy White was chosen. There were 2 firms that responded to the RFQ.
That's good. So when this contract expires in 3 years, the next board can decide whether they need you to do an RFQ again.
Dr. Operin, you mentioned on the Measure Q audits, if we don't do an audit, we don't have to spend that year's amount.
That is correct.
Okay.
We may expend all of our Measure Q dollars before the end of 2020. So let's imagine we expend all of our dollars in the 21-22 school year, then we would not have a need for Christy White to audit any books for the 22-23 school year. We would not be charged that audit fee.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, this is, it's not silent, so, Sergio,
Aye.
Raymer,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Brad Waller?
Aye.
And I for myself, motion carries 5-0. Motion and second for 12.4.
So moved, David.
Second, Brad.
I'm going to go straight to vote since I think we've covered it unless anyone has any objection. Sergio,
Aye.
Raymer,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
and Brad Waller.
Aye.
And I for myself, 12.4 carries 5-0. 12.5, approved proposal for Celis Legacy School Grant and Contract for 2021 year.
Moved, Mike.
Hang on one second.
Second, David.
There, thank you. All right, now go for it.
Sorry. Okay, 12.5. So this is to approve the proposal for the Acellus contract for 2020 summer program. As we transitioned to our distance learning model, we anticipated that our traditional Redondo Union High School summer program would also most likely take on a distance learning model. So Acellus has helped many of our alternative education students needing credit recovery become A through G eligible, and it is a very adaptive online academy that has helped students at RBUSD. So this summer, we will have our Redondo Union High School summer school teachers leverage the Acellus program to start off the summer school year with a diagnostic check, kind of a pre-test to check in on students' proficiency levels. As we know that the Acellus program has the content and the curriculum, but our teachers, being the experts, will provide the live instruction, the small group
teaching as well as the daily check-ins that will be embedded in our summer school program. So our staff recommends that you approve this action item. Any questions?
It's, any questions on it?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. How many other I'm familiar with the Celis. I know we've used it for a lot of other things, but because what's been going on, I've got parents that talk to me and say, "Oh, we checked out Apex and we really like this, and we've checked out this one and we really like this." How many programs are actually, I guess, qualified? Because just because a parent found a good program online doesn't mean it's something that will you be able to use and meet our guidelines. How many options did we have?
Currently, we are checking into creating a one-pager, with at least five with our local neighboring districts, Edgenuity, Apex, UC, Scout. There's a couple that we're doing a analysis on their program, a cost, and we will present that to all of you soon. We went with Acellus because not only do we have good history with them, but because of the grant arrangement, the grant is paying for 75% of the cost. So for right now, this is just financially very doable.
I believe
That's
also,
a good reason.
not just that, I also understand that this is just for the summer recovery, credit recovery and restoration. So it's very appropriate given the fact that it's paced similarly to students that have worked over at Dreisler, I believe, in an independent study. So it certainly sounds like something the best for our summer program. I believe we're considering other options should we have distance learning moving forward, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
That's probably the questions you're getting about Brad, not summer.
Right.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, Sergio.
Aye.
Raymer.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Brad Waller.
Aye.
And I for myself. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 12.6, initial proposal of Early Childhood Federation, AFT, to the Laguna Beach Unified School District. Can I get a motion second?
So moved, David.
Second, Brad.
Yes, this is the Early Childhood Federation, AFT Local 1475's initial proposal for the 2021 negotiations. And staff recommends that you acknowledge the AFT Sunshine publicly at this meeting, and then note that at the next board meeting, you would accept the proposal.
Questions? Hearing none, because it's contract related, Sergio, I'm going to skip you for the next couple of those. Raymer.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Brad Waller.
Aye.
And I for myself. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 12.7, initial proposal for to the Laguna Beach Unified School District, Early Childhood Federation, AFT. Motion and second.
So moved.
So
David.
moved. Or second, Raymer.
So this goes with 12.6. This is RBUSD's initial proposal to AFT for the 2021 negotiations. Staff recommends you present the RBUSD Sunshine proposal publicly and note that at the next board meeting, you would adopt this proposal.
Any questions? Raymer.
Aye.
Mike.
Aye.
David.
Aye.
Brad Waller.
Aye.
I for myself. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 12.8, revised collective bargaining MOU agreement with CSEA regarding school closures due to COVID-19. Motion and second.
Moved, Mike.
Second, David.
This is a revision to the MOU that you approved at the April 28th board meeting with CSEA regarding the school closures due to COVID-19. The revision is specifically with number 11, where it previously extended the classified employees probationary period for the number of days campuses are closed. So that language didn't pass CSEA Rule 610. So we will continue to follow the contract for probationary period and classified evals. We recommend that you approve this revised MOU with CSEA.
Okay, I don't have a question on it, but just a note for our records to make sure that the attached PDF copy has the full page, because it actually does cut off the second page for whatever reason at number 7. I don't see the rest of it in that copy. I know we got a copy sent to us.
Got it. Yeah, I have a better copy in my office.
But I'm just saying for our record, let's make sure that it has the full one.
Thank you.
Okay. Kramer,
Aye.
Mike,
Aye.
David,
Aye.
Brad Waller,
Aye.
and I for myself. Motion carries 5-0. Moving on to 12.9, adopt resolution R19-20:39, reduction or elimination of particular AFT certified services. Motion and second.
So moved, David.
Second, Brad.
Thank you.
So as you're aware, we've been funding the CDC program since its closure in March by exhausting all of the CDC reserves and with our gracious parent donations actually presented under the general consent. And as you heard earlier from Teresa, we're working on a plan to open CDC in June, but due to the Department of Public Health guidelines, the mandated student-to-teacher ratio is limiting student enrollment, thus limiting the amount of CDC teachers to operate the summer program. It pains us to bring this resolution to you with a recommendation for a layoff of AFT employees. We have called each one personally, and we shared that we will bring them back as soon as possible. So at this time, we are recommending that you adopt this resolution.
Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Raymer,
Aye.
Mike,
The reluctant aye.
agreed. David,
Aye.
Brad Waller,
Aye.
and I for myself as well. Echoing Mr. Christensen. 12.10, adopt resolution R19-20:38, reduction or elimination of particular classified services. Motion and second, please.
Moved, Mike.
Second, Brad.
This resolution is for the same reasons as outlined in 12.9, but it impacts 16 CSEA employees, 12 are CDC instructional aides, and 4 CDC child nutrition services staff. We've personally called all of the impacted employees, and we shared with them that we will bring them back as soon as possible. And I would like to note, and we shared this with all of the employees, including our AFT employees, we explained to them that they do have a right to the position for 39 months, which means they don't have to reapply for the position. We simply call them back when we can bring them back. I think that's something very important to note. So at this time, staff recommends that you adopt this resolution.
Any comments or questions?
I have a comment, just to thank you for your consideration of everyone involved in this and taking the time. I really like the way that Redondo goes about when we have to make these really difficult decisions, making sure that everybody has been well informed ahead of time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start with you, Raymer.
Aye.
Mike,
make plans on how that will look for next year. As we've just heard with our budgets, their support will be more important more than ever. And they partnerships. And finally, they wanted me to let you know that they have a business partner who will be making RUHS Seahawk logo masks that will be for sale for students. That'll be a fundraiser for RBF. So look out for more information about that.
Sounds great. All right, so we'll move on to board member reports. We'll start with David.
No report.
Mike.
Nothing for this meeting.
Okay. Brad.
Let's see, I watched the SSC May Revise remote briefing to see a lot of the stuff reported earlier. The District 3 Community Zoom meeting, I attended one of those most recently and let people know a little bit about where we were. Some of that information is likely outdated by now because things are changing. But people summer school was a big question there, and I was able to let them know that there would be a summer school and it would be online only. Attending the distribution of caps and gowns was nice because this being our last opportunity for graduation, that's don't get to shake hands with 1/6 of the class the way we normally do, but at least I got to hand out caps and gowns to a lot of them, including Sundeep Chakladar, who is going to MIT. So he was wearing an MIT cap, and I was in the same area where Mrs. R was, and she was very happy to see so many of her kids. But I saw the MIT cap and asked him, I said, "Are you just wearing that hat? Or are you going?" He said he was going. So I gave him my RBUSD business card and let him know that if he had any questions about Boston or MIT or anything like that, to reach out to me, which he has already done. So I look forward to having our first RUHS kid at MIT in a really long time. That's my report.
That's good. Raymer.
Just wanted to mention that I've been able to be part of the think tank that Dr. Keller referenced about reopening schools, and I'm very grateful that there's such a strong group of people working hard to make sure that we will come back and come back as safely and as close to as what we can do, have done always so well for our students. So it's ever evolving, and ask for everybody's continued patience and understanding that things change and evolve. And we will do our absolute best we've been bending and flexing for a while now, and we will continue to do that. But if questions, to make sure you ask some of the right people and bear with us as we get more information and can share those plans. That's all.
Perfect. Only one thing I have specifically for this is I took over 2 weeks ago the weekly call with all the board presidents in the South Bay. Al Marasucci was on the call this last week. He gave us almost 2.5 hours, about 2 hours of his time, which we were grateful for. He gave us a lot of insight and things that he's fighting for, and recognizes ultimately that, the challenges that we have here in the South Bay are more significant than other districts. And this week we're talking with Ben Allen on Friday, so hope to get a little bit more insight as far as that goes. One suggestion I'd like to propose to the board, don't need an answer here online, but you could reach out to Ricardo and let him know. As we're coming up to a lot of hard decisions in the next few weeks, it would be nice to have more than just myself here in the boardroom as a board member. I think we can properly distance here and figure that out, and also avoid some of the technical fun that we have on the backside here when we do this. So if there's of interest of anyone or multiple individuals to reach out, please communicate with Ricardo, and we can see if there's more than one or two. But I think we can properly do it, and I think as a collective board team, I think that would be beneficial for all of us. So, not mandatory, of course. You can still do it remotely, but just a thought or suggestion for it. So, for future calendar events, I apologize. I have the smaller version of the This year, we are back here on the 9th of June. Sergio, I believe you will be attending that last meeting, correct?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. So it's not on here, but Monday, that's fine. We have the calendar of events. Yesterday was a holiday, in case we weren't all aware. And then last day of school is June 10th for K through 12. The virtual graduation will be on the 11th. Time to be determined, but most likely the end of the day. And then back here again on the 23rd. Hearing nothing else, can I get a motion for adjournment?
So moved, David.
Second, Mike.
Mike, did you have something? It was mentioned you might have had one other thing.
No?
Okay. And
Actually, yeah. I just was talking to Derek about, you could certainly fill us in at the next board meeting, how we turn in Chromebooks and books, but that's something for next time.
You do it Friday update, but my understanding is everybody is not turning their Chromebooks in except for second grade and seniors this year. Everyone else will be keeping them over the summer.
All right. Okay. That's it.
All right. So since I heard a motion in a second, all those in favor, we'll just do a collective aye.
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 Bye.